What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Got some leftover oats here. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be for the men who are beginning to do the inner work, for the men who are beginning their healing and spiritual awakening journey. And as I started to film this, I'm like, how do I want to introduce the video? Where do I want to begin? And this idea came to me. So let's start here. We're going to start by doing 6 deep breaths together, preferably nasal breathing. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, it doesn't feel right in your body, just practice deep, conscious breathing. So go ahead and close your eyes for a moment. And sit or stand, however you're sitting or standing. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Maybe you're listening while you're doing something. That's totally cool. Just take a moment and breathe in with me. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. Notice the thoughts showing up in your mind, the sensations and feelings within your body. Breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Notice what's showing up within your being. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. And this video is going to be me sharing a lot of the insights and what I've learned on my own healing and spiritual awakening journey to help you and guide you on your own path. And as I was beginning the video today, I could feel the nerves building up inside of me. And I'm like, wait, what a better way to begin a video like this by taking a few deep breaths. Because the nerves, the feelings, the sensations that arise, we're not here to fix them. We're not, and this is actually going to lead right into my first point so beautifully. We're not here to fix ourselves. We're not a problem that needs to be fixed. And my nerves, my nervousness, the angst I'm feeling isn't a problem to be fixed. I don't have to force it out of my system. I have to just be present for it. And by beginning with those 6 deep breaths, I got to cultivate the space within this moment for myself. And the same thing applied to you, assuming you stopped and you took a few deep breaths. And that is one of the biggest lessons I've learned, and the thing that I want to share with you to start this video. The first point I want to get to is you are not a problem that needs to be fixed. And the important thing to grasp about this truth is that the human mind is a problem-solving survival tool. And when we become reliant on the human mind to solve all of our problems because we have a lot of emotional wounds and a lot of emotional trauma that is unresolved within us, the mind kicks in and is like, okay, that's what caused this feeling, so that's the problem, I need to fix it. It can be an external problem that the mind discovers, or it can be an internal one. Both are going to show up on this journey. And the important thing is to come back to the moment, come back to your breath if you need to. Be present and ground yourself in your body and recognize that you are not a problem that needs to be fixed. The emotions, the sensations, the feelings, the stories that arise in the moment are not a problem to be fixed. Sometimes they might require reframing. Sometimes you may need to feel all of the shit. Sometimes you might need to vent. Like, there's so many different paths that you can explore when these energies arise within you, but you are not a problem to be fixed. Your feelings, your emotions, your stories are all important tools and are all important and valid experiences that need to be seen on this journey, but you are not a problem to be fixed. Moving on to the next one. And this is why this point here is one of the biggest reasons why I'm directing this video towards men and for men, because while this applies to everybody, this applies more to us. And that is, your biggest obstacle is going to be your own logic. Your biggest obstacle on your healing and spiritual awakening journey is going to be your own logic. Because logic is going to tell you, oh, you shouldn't feel that way right now. Oh, they didn't mean that. Your logic's going to tell you and justify somebody else's behavior. When the moment, what the universe is trying to show you right now is that there's a wounded inner child inside of you that needs to be seen. And your logic, for lack of a better phrase, can go fuck itself for a moment. Again, this is the mind just doing what the mind does. We can put the logic over here and feel the emotions. But when you are so wired to use the mind to solve all of the problems, to keep pushing emotions down, what's going to happen is whenever an emotion gets kicked up, whenever you're triggered, whenever an emotional wound or trauma is getting triggered within you, the mind's going to kick in and be like, there's the problem. Let's fix it with logic and push it down. Don't feel that way. They didn't mean it. Your mom was this, your dad was that, like whatever it is, whatever shows up for you in those moments. And so your logic is going to be your biggest obstacle. And that's why meditation of any kind is such a potent and powerful tool. So you can start to learn what the mind says, your specific stories say, and how your mind will use logic to keep you from feeling and experiencing the emotions. The next point is feeling isn't something you do. It's something you allow. This is still tying into the mind as a survival tool and a survival mechanism for a moment. Because the mind is going to see the emotions and feelings as a problem. So it's going to be like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? What do I do with this? How do I feel? It's going to ask these kinds of questions. That's what the mind does. It wants to understand. And there's a time and a place for that. But you can't do feeling. You allow it. You cultivate the spaciousness within, where the mental stories have been heard, and you can get beyond that. Think of it as like, what's a good way of thinking of this? You're driving to work, you're driving to the grocery store, you're driving to the gym, and there's all kinds of traffic. And the traffic is all of the stories between you and your destination, the destination being the emotion you're attempting to feel, or rather you're allowing yourself to feel. And so maybe you wait an hour for the traffic to die down so that you have a smooth ride there, right? We have to cultivate the spaciousness within to listen to all the stories so we become familiar with them, and then just allow the feeling. The stories are going to say all kinds of things. You're going to have all kinds of mental patterns, complaining, crying, whining, all of the negative things that we're told not to do as men because it's not masculine, it's not manly, it's what little boys do, it's what girls do, it's what women do, all of those things. All of those things are going to come to the surface because your emotions are a part of your feminine energy. And just because you're a man doesn't mean feminine energy doesn't course within your energetic frequency. So you can't do feeling, even though the mind's going to attempt to try to intellectually understand it and find actionable steps for it. You just allow it. And that comes through safety. That comes through safety, which brings me to my next point, which is you can't force your way to feel safe. The mind is the masculine to the body's feminine. And the masculine energy wants to do, it wants to plan, it wants to organize, right? Again, there's a time and a place for that. You need a well-organized mind to fulfill your purpose, to lead your family, your friends, your colleagues, your community, whatever you feel called to fulfill within your life. You need an organized mind to do that. There's no question. I'm not denying that. This isn't about ignoring the mind altogether. What this is about is your mind is going to try your egoic structures of the mind. They're going to try to force your way to feel safety. Again, this is where logic could be the enemy, because it's like what the mind's going to say is, well, you shouldn't feel that way right now. You should feel safe because you have a roof over your head. You just ate dinner. You just ate lunch. You have a job. Like all of these things. But your emotions don't care about your logic. And your emotions will only come to the surface when there is a deep intrinsic feeling of safety that the ego and the intellect cannot force, right? The next point I want to get to, and this is going to somewhat tie into the other ones, but it's actually a really simple one. And actually, I'm gonna stop because I'm moving really fast. So let's take a moment before I move into number 5. And this is something I have to do for myself a lot of the time, where I have to like when I get into a role, I'm like, get it all done, right? The masculine in me. But I gotta like stop and recenter myself for a moment and slow down, because this isn't a race for me to force all of the information out, right? The point I just made, almost always these points help me understand myself better. I'm not trying to force all these points out to get it to you in a faster way, hoping that it'll help you heal faster, because it doesn't work that way. You can't force healing. But my next point is less is more. Less is more. When you start to spiritually awaken, and when you start to feel the call, feel that pull towards the path of healing, you may feel compelled to learn all there is. And we're going to get to that a little bit later, because that's a whole thing in and of itself. But you may feel compelled to learn all the information about healing, about the mind, psychology, energetic frequencies, all the spiritual stuff, anything and everything you can get your hands on. And there are so many rabbit holes that go down on the internet that it can become overwhelming very rapidly, and then you may just cause confusion within. It's like, well, what do I do? I need to start working out more, but I also need to go see a therapist, but I also need to start meditating more, but I also need to eat better foods, because the frequency of the foods are going to feed my own frequency. But it's like, but I also need to worry about water, because there's reverse osmosis water, and then there's breath work, and breath work is really important because that's how you ground in the moment. And so it's like you could get really overwhelmed really fucking fast. And the mind, again, a phenomenal tool for our experience on this goddamn planet, but it can get in its own way. So remember, less is more. Find the first area that calls to you. Okay, I'm gonna do the inner work mentally. Great, maybe go see a therapist, maybe hire a mentor, whatever you need to do. Maybe do it yourself, learn. Maybe that's where like you wanna learn psychological jargon and whatnot, so you can learn for yourself. Maybe you feel called to do something in the future. Whatever your thing is, it's all okay. It's just less is more. Focus on one thing at a time. Focus on your physical health. Are you even going to the gym, right? Because if your body is in a state of survival, it's going to be really hard to heal mentally and emotionally. So, and I mean by a state of survival, I mean if you have chronic pain, chronic illnesses, things of that sort, work on those physically first. If you just sit around all day and you're just being lazy, and you need to go to the gym, but your excuse is I'm lazy or I don't feel like it, get your ass off the couch and go to the fucking gym. There are some simple actionable steps that intrinsically, internally, every single man knows he needs to take. But stories get in the way. Stories get kicked up. I don't want it right now. I'm too busy. Work's tiring. Get over yourself. This shit, it sounds great and fluffy, like the God is going to heal you with a snap of the fingers, like he's Thanos. And while we can envision that, you have to take actionable steps to demonstrate that you're willing to sit in the fire with the shit you've been running from. And then the universe or God will match your frequency. But until then, you have to take the ownership over your internal and external, meaning your body, landscape. So remember, less is more. You know where you have to start. Don't go consuming more information when you still haven't even joined the gym. Don't go learning more about psychology when you still haven't even started to go for walks or eat better food, Start with simple things that you already know you need to do. Next up is setting boundaries will trigger guilt and shame. I'm going to let that one land for a minute, and then I'm going to say it again, because I feel like I'm talking to like 23-year-old me through this one. Setting boundaries will, that's not a question, it's not a maybe, it will trigger guilt and shame. If you have never really prioritized your own needs, if you struggle to prioritize your own needs, no matter what area of life you're in right now or what season of life you're in right now, setting boundaries to protect your energy, to fulfill your own needs, to honor yourself is going to trigger guilt and shame. That doesn't mean don't set the boundaries. If you need to set boundaries with your family, when you do it, you may feel guilt because you've always been really close to them, or you guys have always done XYZ thing together. Just because you feel the guilt doesn't mean don't do it. We have to learn to move through the emotions. Hold them as you're taking the action that you know you need to do, right? One of the things I saw a lot as a personal trainer was people had this fear of judgment by going to the gym. That didn't mean that they shouldn't go to the gym. That just meant that they had a fear of judgment and they needed to go to the gym, which means they had to face that fear of judgment head on. Fear in and of itself is not a reason to not do something. It's an invitation to hold all of yourself. See that small version of you that's afraid of whatever it is, going to the gym, afraid of the shame that's going to be kicked up when you set the boundaries, afraid of your mom's opinion, afraid of your dad's judgment, whatever it is, and then do it anyway. Okay, so setting boundaries will trigger guilt and shame. That does not mean don't set them. Set them, and then listen to the stories, feel the emotions, and become familiar with those emotions, sensations, and feelings within your body. That's what true self-realization, self-understanding, and self-knowledge is all about. Not just knowing what your patterns and your stories are, but understanding yourself viscerally within your body, so experiencing all of yourself. The next one, and this is kind of where I told you we'd come back to these points later, but the next one is more information is a slippery slope. Information is great. It can help us take the next steps. It can help guide us if we are like, you ask yourself, how do I feel? Like, how do I feel or how do I heal my shame? My father wound. Okay, that might be a little bit more technical. How do I heal the father wound? And then, like, the next day, you're scrolling on TikTok, and then there's a video about it, and you get the information. What do you do next, right? Do you take the information and just intellectually understand it, maybe memorize it, and then tell everybody about it? Or do you actualize it? Do you begin to integrate the information and embody it? This is why I'm saying intellectually understanding or information in and of itself can be a slippery slope. Information can be a slippery slope because information is a great starting point, but if you don't integrate the information by living it, by practicing it, right? Integration is practicing the information. If you don't integrate the information, then it's just a concept. And a lot of people like to live in their head. They like to conceptualize anything. They don't like to actualize it. You have to integrate it. You have to actualize it by practicing the information. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, feeling your emotions, listening to your stories. That is practicing healing. That is practicing healing. Healing isn't just a release of all your stored up trauma into the ethers. You have to you have to roll up your energetic sleeves, your emotional and psychological sleeves, and get your hands dirty with the shit you've been running from. Information can just continue to push it down. So information can be a slippery slope. You have to take the information, integrate it through practice, and embody it as who you are. So the more and more you practice it, the more you embody it. Is the simplest way I can put it, but that is something you must experience, not something that intellectually understanding is going to make it so for you. The last point I'm going to hit on here is taking a deep breath to slow down for a moment. See, I'm in real time integrating the fact that I'm not in a rush. The rush, or rather the illusion that I have somewhere to be or something to prove, is not real. And I can fire this all out as quickly as I can, but this is something I've been actively working on, is slowing the fuck down. Taking a deep breath as I speak. And what better time to do it when I'm recording a video for my YouTube channel? So the last point I want to hit on is, tying back to the last one, be cautious of intellectual stimulation masquerading as healing. Right? When the mind, the ego grab the hold of all of this intellectualization of healing, whether you go the psychological route, whether you go a deeper spiritual route, specific modalities, like whatever route your mind grabs a hold of and you really take a liking to, they're all wonderful. Right? Like if you like Tantra, if you like archetypal psychology, if you like transpersonal psychology, or you like the yoga philosophy, like whatever thing you end up gravitating towards, they're all wonderful. And the truth is, you can become so intellectually wrapped up in that it feels stimulating mentally, that healing just remains a concept. And it feels like healing because the intellectual stimulation arouses enough of the neurochemistry to make you feel like you're moving forward. But in reality, what's happening is it's just pushing the psychological wounding deeper and covering it up with fancier jargon and more spiritual sounding stuff. So be cautious of intellectual stimulation masquerading as healing. The key to this is discernment. And this is going to come back to one of my earlier points where I talked about meditation and learning what your mind sounds like. The stories. Become familiar with them. Become familiar with all of yourself. Your egoic stories formed as a protection mechanism from a 7-year-old who was afraid of being seen, who was afraid of expressing his emotions, from, being abandoned. Right? Discerning what that part of you sounds like, discerning what your highest self sounds like. When you take the seat of witness consciousness and you start to witness all of it. Discernment is an internal skill set that has to be practiced and cultivated. It is not intellectualizing everything and understanding it through some mental model. Those are great. They have a time and a place. Again, I'm not here to deny or denounce any way of thinking, any spiritual practice, none of that. Tyler personally loves to learn about all of them. I have the Bhagavad Gita on the shelf behind me. Right? The Hindu scripture. I have a book on prana and pranayama. I have a book on shamanism. I want to learn more about Tantra. I want to learn all of it. It's so fascinating to me. And we could so easily become intellectually stimulated by the information that it feels like healing when all we're doing is just pushing. It's like this. You're riding a elliptical. Right? You want to ride a bike to get somewhere, but you're actually on an elliptical not moving anywhere. That's what it's like. You just keep spinning your wheels, but not actually making any progress. And you confuse movement with actual progressive healing. So that's going to be the video, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you took anything from this video, there will be a link down in the description below if you would like to subscribe to my email letter for more grounded insights similar to this. I write weekly email letters to our community, to our brotherhood, where I share insights from my personal experiences. I offer different journal prompts and exercises and embodiment practice, integration practices for you to utilize on your healing journey. So if you would like to sign up for that, there will be a link down below. With that out of the way, like, comment, subscribe, all the things for the YouTube algorithms, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.